We have a very, very special guest today. I'd like everybody to meet Ronen, who is a good friend of ours and the CEO and founder of Luna. We might just throw straight over to Ronen and get a little bit of a background on why he founded Luna and what actually Luna does. Ronen, welcome.
Thanks. So Dave, do I just call you Big Dog now?
Some do, but I'm still coming to terms with that, my friend.
I'll go with Professor Gilbert. Thanks for having me. It's actually quite funny looking at this picture because somehow I've ended up in the same attire as my headshot. So hi everyone. I'm Ronen Heine. I'm the founder of a company called Luna, but more importantly to all of you, I am going to be running the Law for Entrepreneurs course as part of the Masters of Business subject next year. I'm really excited to be doing that. I guess, Dave, do you want me to give a bit of a background into how I started Luna and how
That'd be great, mate. Yeah.
Sitting here? So I guess like all of you, I was a uni student once studied at Monash. I actually started out in biomedicine because I loved inventions and discovery, and I thought biomedicine into research and would be an area of interest for me. So I went down that path, did a bit of a U-turn when I realized that I didn't want to be in a lab researching on the discovery side. I wanted to be involved in the commercialization side, bringing these inventions and ideas to life. So I went back and studied law at Monash as well. From there, I went along. I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do really. And then I ended up at one of the big law firms, hoping that I was going to get involved in biotech and inventions and sort of from a legal aspect, bringing those inventions to life, and whether that was through patents or, sort of business law, and just be involved in that type of work. Ending up at a big law firm, I realized that I didn't really have much choice in terms of the type of work I was doing. I was a junior at the firm at the time. It's called Arnold Bloch Leibler, one of the big ones in the city. They're all pretty similar. And I was there for 5 years, helping set up businesses, sell businesses as a commercial lawyer, help businesses raise money. So lots of work on investment and funding, and then a lot of work on buying and selling businesses too. I got really lucky at the time that just because of the law firm I was working at, I happened to start picking up work in the tech space. So our clients who were high net wealth individuals or directors of big companies would invest in young entrepreneurs in their businesses, and they would come to us and say, hey, well, why don't you I'm giving all this money to this young entrepreneur who's starting a new business. Maybe like some of the participants here are thinking about, young uni students, people just out of uni, 25-year-olds who have an idea. Usually the business is tech-based. And so those our clients would come and say, hey, I'm going to give them some money, but on the condition that they work with you. So can you do some free work for them? And so I started to pick up this tech work on the side to working at the big law firm. And I quickly started to realize that, hey, these small young businesses that I'm doing as a side favor because of our big clients paying huge fees, this is not a favor on the side. People out there like, the students, you guys are, this is business of the future. This is recreating business as we know it. And this is not small fish or side project. And in fact, it's not about doing what you do for, let's call it big business over here for free for startups over there. This is actually its own separate area of law. And so I started to get really engaged in the startup space, started to think about how entrepreneurs were accessing services like legal, accounting, investment. Traditionally had always been sort of separate. If you think about legal, accounting and consulting, if you like, sort of separate businesses. And I started to realize that for an entrepreneur who's never started a business before, these were really different concepts. And then on the flip side, from industry providing legal, accounting or investment advice to a young entrepreneur is very different to a 50-year-old grey-haired dude in a suit. It's a different approach to law. So I left, and that's how Luna was founded, if you like, off the back of the problem of, well, how do entrepreneurs access services like legal, accounting, and investment when they've had no experience doing it. And so we started Luna off the back of that problem 5 years ago now. And basically we call ourselves a startup studio, which basically means that we are a range of different services to help entrepreneurs launch and grow businesses. So we have a legal team, an accounting team, and then what we call labs, which encompasses education and investment for startups. So particularly here for today, I'm a lawyer. I've got partners who run the other areas, but I set up the legal arm to the business. And, we work with hundreds of startups across the range, from people who just have ideas to, some of the next biggest tech companies in Australia. And so, yeah, our team's about 16 or so people now, all focused on working with startups. And yeah, we've created this course for Monash for the Law for Entrepreneurs, which I'll be heading up. And I'm totally pumped and psyched to be doing that. So that might have been a bit longer than you hoped, David, but that's who I am. So hi, everyone.
Fantastic story. Thanks, Ronen. Look, I was thinking this morning about why we've actually asked you to design and deliver this unit. And when we were looking at the overall design of the program, particularly the specialisation, it was very obvious that law had to have a seat at the table, that it was critical. And then I started to reflect on my own startup journey in Japan, where I actually launched a business without any structure, any registration, had no idea of the law, and suddenly found myself operating outside the law and then started to realize that I needed things like a business visa. I needed a company structure. I needed a company bank account that all needed to be registered with the Japanese authorities. And I'd done none of that. And here I was trading, incurring liabilities left, right, and center, and just had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I nearly lost that business in 3 months. Mm. Partly because of that, but partly because I didn't understand cash flow as well. The terms of trade, shall we say, were very favourable to my clients and not very good for me. Yeah. So it's been a really important aspect of what we've done at the program to get somebody who not only understands law, but practices it in a startup environment. And I think this is really critical and a differentiator for what we're doing. All of our industry teaching fellows are practitioners who are actually doing what they're teaching. And that's really critical. I'm going to start off by just a little general question, and around some observations you might have in this current COVID environment regarding some of the trends that you've noticed in startup and particularly aspects of the law.
Yeah, well, I mean, this has been, COVID has been like some sort of a journey for lawyers and probably accountants too, because, as a service business, we have our own business to worry about, but also, we work with, I think it's 600 startups, right? So we worry about them too. So we're wearing the brunt of, what's happening there. So just if we touch on the industry first, we're pretty fortunate because, tech businesses are actually, have done all right through this period, whilst enterprises, tech businesses that focus on selling products to big businesses and big corporates, that slowed down. But there's a lot of other tech that's doing really well through this period, collaborative tools, online learning, new ways. So marketing tech, digital marketing tech, these companies are doing really well. So in terms of our clients and what we've seen, and you see this in the public markets as well, tech businesses have held up through this period, because what this period we think has done for startups is maybe fast forwarded their development and their importance to the world. So we're really, on one hand, quite excited by what we've seen in terms of, startups, tech, and, the participants, people out there, you're exploring the startup space and exploring getting into the space. This is the best time to get involved. What we're actually seeing on our end is, whilst maybe stuff like investment, which funding often comes from high net wealth individuals, and investment funds. That stuff's dried up, but we're seeing an explosion in new people starting businesses. Young people going, well, I maybe got let off from my job. What else am I going to do? I'm going to start a business. I'm going to get involved in entrepreneurship. And so we think it's a really encouraging time for entrepreneurs. From the legal side, I guess the second part of your question, it was really difficult because there was a couple of things happening. This COVID environment created a situation of like, there's no rules for this. No one. 2 months ago, I've been a lawyer for 10 years. I've never heard of the term of having employees stood down, or furloughed. I actually didn't even know what that meant, right? And then all of a sudden, you're getting all these, 20% of employees right now have been stood down, if not more, right? So it was really quick that we had to be really nimble, like as a law firm of sorts ourselves. We had to be nimble, first of all, in making sure, okay, cool, what's our business like? How are we going to be able to service our clients with remote working and, the stuff that goes on? So first, as a law firm, we had to sort ourselves out to say, okay, cool, can we still provide the services that we need to our clients? And then we had to skill up in all this sort of COVID regulations that started to come. So there was standing down employees. At the start, there was all sorts of stuff in health and safety in the workplace. At the start of this, when we thought, well, okay, we're in the office, just before lockdown, when it looked like internationals, it was all happening in China and the US and Europe, and there were restrictions on who you can have in your office and who you can't, and what's working from home look like. So that set up a whole lot of other legal ramifications. And then probably the biggest one of the lot was people accessing the government grants and who qualified. And so there's all these, everyone probably has heard of JobKeeper and JobSeeker, and then there's all these other grants you can get. And so that kind of fits broadly into the legal space as well, where we had our clients going, hey, do I qualify for this? Do I meet the requirements? And the government basically, they put out, hey, here's $130 billion, but it usually takes a year, 2 years to get this legislation passed and drafted, and you get a chance as a lawyer, to know what the rules are. This was all like fly as you go. So it's been pretty wild.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I really like that point about, the upside on the curve of innovation, and how the opportunities are really ripe for the taking at the moment. And
Totally.
I'm really excited to see people that potentially wouldn't normally go down that road actually jump in and go, well, if I'm not going to do it now, when am I going to do it?
Yeah.
And our young students have, they've just been full of ideas. And I guess our job, our role, our pastoral care of them is to make sure that they do that in the right way. This is where we bring law in, and we're really excited about you joining our team. We've got a fantastic teaching team, as you know, and they're all very, very committed to developing future talent. And that's, a hallmark and a value of our program that we cherish and take very, very seriously. So I guess the first question I'm going to ask you about that is, why do we need law for startups?
It's a good question. So, the thing about law for me is, it's something you raised at the start. Your story, David, is not uncommon for a lot of entrepreneurs, where they go about building their business and they ignore the legal side. And it's not that, law makes a business, right? But the way I look at law is, you're running this race, you're building this business. The whole nature of startups is, it's based off the premise of high risk, high reward. If you're going to do something innovative, new for the first time, it comes with risk that, who are your customers? Who's going to buy the product? What does it look like? How do you scale it? How does someone who has no industry experience do something? And that's actually how great innovations happen. But it has this concept of high risk, high reward. So my view of how law plays into that is, the entrepreneur and the founder and the founding team, founders build businesses. Where law comes into it is, this is a cool, exciting, high risk path you're taking in terms of, building this business and and letting it go. And there's so many things to deal with along the way. I think legal acts can act as a hurdle, and having the right legal stuff just removes the hurdle. You still have to run the race and get through the race, if you like. But having a good lawyer or having the basic legal fundamentals just removes hurdles along the way. So, an example we see, unfortunately, happens a lot is founders get together. And when people start businesses, everything is friendly. When you're starting a business, you are at heightened sense of excitement. You've met someone. It's like, it's like a relationship. You've met a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a partner for the first time, and you're just excited, and this is going to be amazing. And starting a business is like that. So you get together and you decide, hey, we're going to go take over the world, and we have the perfect people, we have complementary skill set, and everything's good at the start. Off they go, there's a handshake, there's a high five, they get going, and they forget about actually documenting the relationship. What happens if things don't go right? What happens if things get a bit curly? What happens if I want to go to the right and you want to go to the left? And so we've actually got some data now that shows 60% of businesses fail because of founder disputes. Not because it's not a good business, not because it's not a good product that people want to buy, not because there's a financial opportunity, but because the people behind the business don't have a robust relationship to move the business forward. And most founders don't set up with a basic agreement in place, a basic one pager that just says, hey, this is how we're going to make decisions. These are some rules for how we're going to build. This is what happens if we disagree. And that happens so often. So like using that as an example, that's one of the big things we're doing. The big things we need is just setting up relationships for how to have a proper business from the start. And why I'm so excited by this subject is to make it more accessible. I think people in the past often view lawyers as expensive. Maybe it's such a foreign area that people think, it's easy if I just push that aside and it's just going to get in the way. And I guess we at Luna, and me personally, I'm just on a mission to make it more accessible, understood, and actually valuable for founders to be able to use it. So someone like you can get the basic stuff they need. So you don't have to worry about that, because they're really small little things that can easily get done.
Wow, great insights. And those little things can pull the big things down really, really quickly.
Yeah. We've been there.
And your observation about lawyers perceived as expensive, that was exactly my thoughts. Back in Japan, I thought, I don't have the money to pay for a lawyer, so I'll just park that and get on with life. And you soon realize that that's not a smart play at all. And the founders agreement and shareholder arrangements and things like that are things that are not very often considered by our young entrepreneurs. So we're really keen to make sure that they get that grounding in those foundational aspects of setting up a business, the right structure, the right agreements, so that it can be professional from the get-go rather than try and build it in at the end.
Yeah, totally. And that's really hard, because the thing, people often do the thing at the start saying, hey, it's too expensive at the start. I can't afford this, so I won't do it. But there's a point in time where it actually becomes more expensive and more of a problem down the line, that you are better off at least doing something, maybe not everything, but, something little at the start.
Absolutely. So how does startup law differ from corporate law?
Yeah, so hugely different. So I didn't learn this, to be honest, until I truly got into the startup space. So if we think about my journey, I was at this big law firm for 5 years, and I'm talking working with, the biggest, some of the, even tech, big tech is different from startup phase, if you like. I was working with companies like Seek and car sales and big tech companies who are really big corporates now. And I thought it was a matter of taking what we did over there and doing it for free over there. And then I started to see that actually our clients weren't getting great outcomes with that. You would take, let's use the founders agreement, the agreement between two people who start a business at the start. When you do that with, say the way you would do it traditionally in the corporate environment, with sort of two big corporates coming together, or two really high net wealth individuals who have big family groups and large assets that they have. You might spend $50,000 putting together this founders agreement that's really robust and covers every single situation, and it's really developed, and that works for that style of business. But that's not that, and those two shareholders who come together have all the money they need to fund the business themselves. Now, if you think about two 25-year-olds, 20-year-olds coming together, starting a business based off tech that they've built or whatever product they've got, it's a fundamentally different approach. So if you take that agreement that you do over there for the corporates and you apply it over here to the startups, that agreement, first of all, it will cost a fortune. That agreement will actually get thrown out when, 6 months later. So it's not relevant. If you're a startup, you need to build a business, you build it yourself, you hustle, you do all those things. Then maybe you get some funding from the government or a grant or an investor. Maybe you're able to bootstrap, so maybe you're able to generate revenue and then fund back into the company. It's a fundamentally different approach. So I learned that the hard way, thinking you take the stuff you do over there for big business and apply it for free over here, and it will work the same, and it actually gets in the way. And so it was through that I realized, well, this is its own specific area, and it requires a specific skill set, specific approach to legal advice, specific legal documents. It's all different. It's to tell you the truth, it's like going from property law, or construction law, to business law. They're just, or litigation, which is suing people and going to the courts, versus business law. I think they're just totally different areas of law, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, another great answer. And then, if we get away from founders agreement into investment, and we look at things like term sheets and actually understanding what you are getting into. And there's that whole Silicon Valley model of, you've got to get pre-seed capital, and then you've got to get seed capital, and then you've got to go into a Series A and Series B. And I think where a lawyer can be very, very useful is actually stress testing and questioning that. Do you actually need the capital? And if you do so, how do we structure that so that you actually know what you're getting into or giving away in the company? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a good point. I guess my first thought is, you will hear a lot. You mentioned the Silicon Valley way. As students now, engaging in entrepreneurship. If you started Googling about startups and tech, and going to meetups and whatnot, you'll hear a lot about venture capital, VCs, investment, and capital. So, it's almost, you'll almost think that you can't start a business without having investment. And when we say investment, we mean someone, a third party, a company actually giving you money to build your business. The truth of it is, it's different for every company. So, if we think about the biggest, so it's not that I'm against investment, it's just not the only way. So if we think about Australia's most successful company, I believe, in Australia, arguably would be Atlassian, right? And I'm not even talking tech company. I'm talking, Australia's most high-performing company at the moment is a tech company called Atlassian. And that sits on the New York Stock Exchange. They're going great. The founders are the two most, I think, number 1 and 2 wealthy people in Australia now. That's a tech company built off no investment in the start. Bootstrap, which is, you have a product, you sell the product, you use the money you get from selling the product to invest in, and you keep going. So I believe that it's really important to understand investment. So it's really important because it's really important that you make the decision and you have the understanding of, do I need it? And if you need it, that's also great. There's, for every story about people who didn't need it, there's a lot more stories about people who get investment who then do really well from it. So it is something great if you can get, but it's not for everyone and it's not needed. So I think fundamentally to your question, it's really important to understand it, because then you can make the decision of, Do I need it? In which case, great. How am I going to negotiate with investors? How am I going to make sure that me as a young person who's never done this before has a fair go in the negotiation? Or on the flip side, because you understand it, you can say, oh, I get it. I see where this is going. It's not great, but it's not for me. And then you go the other way.
Yeah, great point. I don't think people understand well enough the pressure of investment and the return on investment that's expected from the people that are investing in your company. As a young person in a startup, you've got enough pressures already, so it's really got to make sense to you. I mean, I've spoken to students before about the dreaded nightmare of meeting payroll every month, and to have that investment overhang. There's so many stories of young people that have given away equity in their company, taken on investment, and have not been successful, and we don't hear about those cases. We hear about the successful ones, and therefore that whole Silicon Valley model is sold to people. So it's something, and I hope the students who are listening actually picked up the integrative links that we've got in our program across accounting and finance, tech and innovation, and now into law for startups. They're all part of a whole and not separate, discrete sort of disciplines that you go and study and go, yeah, okay, I understand law now, or I understand, accounting and finance. It's about making sure that they work together to produce a successful startup. That's really critical. And I hope our students are really getting a sense of that. I just want to move on to getting the greatest value out of a lawyer.
Yeah.
You're coming from the other side of the chair or the table. What's your advice for students in terms of that?
So my advice for students is probably like anything. When you're doing something for the first time, you have to find, I would say, it's really good to find a way that you engage with the subject matter yourself a little bit. So, and I think this is where the course is going to be really great for people who are coming into the course. It's the same in other areas. Hey, if you're going to run a marketing campaign and hire an agency, how can you know if they're going to do a good job for you if you don't even explore or Google or get some info or speak to some mentors about what do you need? So it's the same with lawyers. There's plenty of material out there. There's lots of law firms who exist like us who are happy to have just consults or run webinars to help train entrepreneurs in what are some legal fundamentals you need to know, just like basic concepts. It's really, as a lawyer, if we have a client who understands, oh cool, all right, I'm starting a business, I think I need a structure. I don't need to know what. I need a structure. I'm going to have a client, so maybe I should have an agreement. I've got a partner in this business. What happens if things go wrong? Just so that you have those thought processes. Then the lawyer can actually point you to what you need and what you don't need as well. So often, if you just go to a lawyer and say, hey, I'm starting a business, I know nothing, tell me what you need. Then the lawyer's like, hey, you need everything. And then that's where all these things happen. And the founder goes, oh, right. But, if you can have a bit of an understanding of where your business is at, what you think you maybe need via exploring, then you'll get more out of the relationship. You'll get more value for money. You'll get a bunch of tips and tricks. I think most lawyers would say that, they love working with new businesses. It might be hard to do the work and depending on the law firm, but if you're a young person, you have an idea, and a lawyer, go to them and say, hey, I'm doing this thing. What do you think I need to know? What areas should I be exploring? It's not only about going there and saying, getting the work done. Sometimes it's just about asking the question and saying, hey, what should I know? What should I explore? Where are the resources? You go look into it. You might be able to do some stuff yourself for no cost. There's a lot of online templates for doing things. And then you've established a relationship with a lawyer who you can go back to when you're in trouble, like you in Japan.
Great answer. I'm going to pick up on a point there, because how many students? We've got about 25 odd students listening. Now, please don't tell anybody this, but we don't give you all the information. We want to challenge you to learn to ask the right questions, and being informed, doing your background is really, really critical. And there's no excuse not to. You've got information at your fingers, so at your fingertips. So it's really critical that you learn to ask the right questions. And I think that was a great point that you covered there, Ronen, because I think a lot of students sometimes expect to sit in class and just get an info dump and go, yeah, thank you very much, walk out of the classroom and forget it. But if you're forced to actually go and action and do something about gaining that knowledge, it will stay with you for the rest of your life.
Totally. And just, as an example, probably something I should have mentioned before, but to pick up on that, there really is no point. We see it causing more problems than anything when a founder comes to us and says, hey, I don't know anything. Tell me what I need. And if we go and just give them what they need, so let's say example, hey, I don't know anything, I'm starting a business, and we say, okay, here's the structure you need for your business. Here it is, all done for you. Here's the fee. It's all done, nothing for you to worry about. Trust us, it's all great. You run into problems down the line because it's not the lawyer who uses the product you provide. So if we create a business structure for the founder needs to use that structure to run their business. So when the founder goes to opening up their bank accounts, when the founder goes to setting up going overseas, when the founder applies for an investment or a grant, they need to understand the structure they have. They have to talk to it. It's not the lawyers. And so if the founders have no understanding of that at the start, well, then they paid for something they got, which they then don't end up using, and then they get into the trouble anyway. So I totally agree with what you just mentioned, and yeah, I really implore the students to take that approach, and we will take that approach with them in this subject, won't we?
Great segue there, mate. So moving on to law for startups, and second semester we launch, so it's only a matter of weeks away. No pressure, and I'm sure there's going to be a good level of enrolment in the unit. So can you talk to us a little bit about the design and what you're thinking around delivery as well?
Yeah, totally. So I'm really excited by this. So I had an education experience myself at university, which taught me how to, I would say, learn information really quickly, put it down in the page and then forget about it. So we're really coming on a personal note when designing this, it's at the forefront to make sure that this will be totally different to other experiences you had, more engaging, more relevant, only industry stuff, only talking about real life practical applications to startups, and a little bit on how to access law and investment as well. So the course design is really geared towards teaching people who are interested in startups. Maybe they're going to work for startups, the students, maybe you're thinking about starting up your own business. And what are the key areas you should have a basic understanding of? Not to learn law or learn how to be lawyers, but how you can navigate the fundamentals you need, so that you can go to a lawyer, so that you can speak to an aunt or an uncle who is a lawyer and say, hey, I'm starting a business. These are the areas that I need some help in. I'm comfortable with X, I'm comfortable with Y, I think I need some help with Z. So just introing basic legal fundamentals to starting a business will be the program. In terms of how we'll teach it, there'll be different components. So students will go on a journey. It will be as if they're setting up a company at the start themselves. So all of you out there, you'll be if you join the subject, which I encourage you to, you'll be working on a case example using a real life business, if you like, to that you'll be following the journey from start, from idea towards having customers, how to employ people, how to bring on investment. And so that will be the course flow, just covering the basic different modules that any founder would need for the first year or year and a half of business. And we've actually purposely designed a box of sorts. So it's going to be a platform where the students, in order to learn some of the basic concepts, maybe get some templates, maybe learn how to set up their own business structure, take on investment. It will be done using a platform we by interacting with a bot. So it sounds a bit vague and out there, but yeah, basically we'll have a legal chatbot that the students will be engaging with the whole time, which will be directing them towards their legal needs. And come the end of the course, they will basically, for their prototype business, have built the basic legal fundamentals they need to make sure that they are covered and they are not part of that 60% who fail because they don't have the agreements in place.
Wow, really cool. And what I love about that is I'm very strong about experimenting in education. You know, if you're just doing the same old lecture shoot, blah blah blah, it gets pretty boring very quickly. Times are so dynamic, startups are so dynamic that as educators we need to be pushing boundaries as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that rolls out for sure.
Yeah, same. I think it'll be pretty cool.
Yes.
Never done before, right?
Never done before, so no guarantees of success to all your students out there, but we're going to give it a crack.
Yeah.
Anna, we've got a couple of more minutes, about 5 more minutes for some questions, if there are any out there.
Yes, perfect timing. So just a reminder to anyone who's had questions pop up along the way, to pop them in the Q&A box. We've got about 5 minutes left, as Dave said, so we can get to a few of them. I can see we've got some excellent people from our industry, industry experts and community. We've also got Campbell King, your colleague in there, Ronen.
New dollar bill star.
Dollar bill.
Mr. Cash is king, and because he's just an attendee, he can't even defend himself. So the first question we've got is from one of our students, Utkarsh, and they've asked, I'm an international student from India studying at Monash, and I want to start up my consultancy agency and want to make high ticket sales. So am I eligible to start up my consultancy? It will purely be about building and supporting businesses. There you go. That's the end of that question.
Shall I jump in, David?
Yeah. I think they mean in Australia. That's my reading of that.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So, So, I mean, in Australia, there's there are, I guess, rules for the types of businesses you can start, but they're mainly eliminating illegal businesses, stuff that would be viewed as illegal. You can't start a business, for example, that, it's harder to start businesses that are doing illegal activities without special government exemptions. So the short of it is, yes, you can set up a business in Australia based on the type of business. The thing you have in Australia, though, is when you are going to set up a business, you need to have a local permanent residence as someone involved in the business. So that's often the hard thing for international companies and people when they come to Australia, is they need to find someone who has a permanent residence status. You just need one. You need one person involved in the business. They don't have to sort of hold equity. They just need to be part of the business. We call them a director, but you have to have someone to start a business in Australia. You need someone who has a PR status. So if you live overseas, you live in India, you're resident there. If you have PR status in Australia, great, you can go for it. If not, you in Australia, you'd need to find a local partner.
Yeah, and that's generally true around the world, actually.
Yeah.
Similar conditions. Next question, Anna. Thanks, Ronen. That was great.
Awesome. So we've got a question from Robin Vesey, and he's asked, does Ronen have a checklist or a pack of starting point contracts for startups to work with?
Great question, Robin. And this is a really great way of putting what our bot will do. So in short, and so that's going to be basically part of the subject will be students going through. This bot has all the sort of templates and starting points, and through the bot asking the user questions, you build your own agreements. So and that will then be a template bot that students can then keep from the subject and have as they go building their own businesses in the future.
Fantastic. Yep. And again, it's about that self-discovery. Yeah. Next question.
Wonderful. We have one more, which is probably perfect timing, from Tom Frawley. a question for Ronen. Does Luna work strictly with tech startups, or do you work for not-for-profits as well? I believe Tom Frawley is from Halad to Health, who one of their co-founders is an ex-student of Dave's.
Yeah, cool. Well, great. Thanks, Tom, for the question. So when we say we work with startups, and so for us that is a mentality, not a business type. So it happens that a lot of our companies, majority and most are tech, because when you think about a startup of sorts, it's often tech based, but underneath that is a bunch of other people that are innovating so really the companies we work with are companies that are innovating disruptors, right? And that doesn't have to be purely in tech. So we actually have quite a few not-for-profits that we work with, but the not-for-profits tend to be disruptors, new age, kind of doing things differently. So it wouldn't be the traditional not-for-profit or philanthropic companies that are out there, but it would be those who are shifting the paradigm or doing something new that's needed. So we do a lot in the social enterprise space. So people who are mixing profit with purpose. There's a whole bunch there, but yeah, basically we do. And if Tom, you got a not-for-profit, you got any questions? We got actually someone who heads up that whole team. So we have a little division on this area. I'd be happy to connect them to you if you just wanted to have a chat or a virtual coffee or something.
Wow, great offer. There you go, Tom. Something of great value out of today. Ronen, thanks very, very much. I know you're very busy, and it's that crazy time of the year, the end of semester. So thanks to all the students for showing up as well. We really appreciate that. We are going to make the recording available to other students, and we really hope we get some very engaged, active students into your unit for second semester. I love the quote, mate. Startup is a mentality, not a business type. Right on the money, because that's pretty much what we're about. We're about building, entrepreneurial mindsets, and then giving them the capabilities to actually go out and execute on that mindset. So I think we're going to have a great time second semester. So greatly appreciate your time today, and looking forward to having you on the teaching team second semester.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. And yes, students, people out there, love to see you in this subject. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be great learning. It's going to be a great experience. I would add, I think I just seen my LinkedIn pop up there. Feel free to add me. And if you have any questions like Tom just had in the meantime about something to do with law, even before the subject starts, please, you can hit me up on LinkedIn. I will get back to you.
You're a legend, mate. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thanks so much, Ronen.
We'll say goodbye, and thank you everybody for attending.